Donald Trump has, unsurprisingly, decided to intervene in the Texas election lawsuit that has no merit and is likely to fail in the Supreme Court. However, it was filed by the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Texas announced this week that they're filing the lawsuit directly with the Supreme Court against 4 battleground states. Of course, 4 battleground states that Joe Biden won. And what they're alleging is that Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin was engaged in unconstitutional behavior when they decided to expand mail-in voting as a result of the pandemic. So what did Trump say? Of course, one of his buffoonish tweets: "We will be intervening in the Texas plus many other states case. This is the big one. Our country needs a victory." And unfortunately, 17 other attorneys general signed on to this lawsuit as well. Again, it is very unlikely that they're going to win in this case. But why would the Texas Attorney General want to file this ridiculous lawsuit? They have absolutely no evidence of voter fraud. These are laws that were election laws that were decided by lawmakers or politicians in these individual states. Who's Ken Paxton, an attorney general from Texas, to tell these other states, these battleground states, what their election laws should be? Well, interestingly enough, the Michigan Attorney General spoke to CNN this morning about what might be motivating Paxton. We should take a look at that video.
We should note that AG Paxton, is a member of the Trump campaign, very involved with that. Also that he is currently under federal indictment for securities fraud and also being investigated by the FBI. So I see this more than anything as an effort to ingratiate himself to a man who could potentially provide him with a presidential pardon.
These crooks, it's incredible. And just to give you a little bit more context into the allegations of securities fraud, Paxton, who has been under indictment since 2015 for felony securities fraud charges, is facing fresh criminal allegations from 8 of his top deputies who said they believe he broke the law by using the agency to do favors for a political donor. The FBI is investigating Paxton over those claims. What he engaged in, John, is probably so bad because we've legalized bribery in this country. So the fact that he can even be criminally charged or accused of something like this means that he probably engaged in something horrible. But I wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work in the area of campaign finance to find a way to break the law. Dinesh D'Souza is one of the few people bold/stupid enough in recent years to have actually found a way. The other one was for securities fraud, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, no, he's politically connected and probably wealthy. The fact that he's up on charges for that too implies that, man, this is a really reckless guy. Because Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue and Loeffler's husband have demonstrated how much you can get away with perfectly legally, if not morally. Look, it's not a bad plan. I get it. And why wouldn't it work? Donald Trump has joked recently that he's going to pardon everyone who ever spoke to him. So yeah, this is what the Republican Party, like in terms of the people who are elected and the media are. It's just, do this big demonstrative vice signaling thing to show loyalty. It doesn't matter how clownish it is. It's the people who are going to be paying attention to this have self-selected as the most gullible people in the country. And so whether it fails or not, it's a win for him. There's literally no downside. You can lose case after case after case after case. And it's not like are Trump's fans, are Trump's boosters in the media, are they embarrassed at all about his track record in court? They're not. They're just always looking to the next thing. And if this falls apart, they'll probably just do that too.
And as we learned in recent weeks, there have been instances of presidents, Gerald Ford, for example, who have issued preemptive pardons, meaning you can actually pardon someone before they've even been officially convicted of or charged with a crime. It's really an insane standard, especially when it came to like Nixon. Nixon hadn't even been criminally charged for the Watergate scandal, and Gerald Ford had issued a preemptive pardon. So possibly this is what Ken Paxton is hoping for. And how of course, Ken Paxton, who possibly engaged in criminal activity, is the Attorney General of Texas. But the Attorney General of Michigan was challenged a little bit by her accusations here. So let's hear how she handled that.
You're suggesting a connection there between the indictment of the Texas Attorney General and his pursuing this case. Do you have evidence that there's a connection there?
Well, I just think it makes common sense because of the ridiculous nature of this lawsuit. And I mean, think about it. You have the Texas AG trying to disenfranchise the votes of some 39 million people who live in these 4 other states that the Texas AG does not represent. 21 million people voted in those states. Each and every one of those states, of course, is a state that went for Joe Biden. In my state, nearly 155,000 more votes for Joe Biden than for Donald Trump. And yet the Texas AG is seeking to set aside all that and to allow to have our Republican legislature basically substitute their votes for that of those millions and millions of people who voted in their states and overturn the will of the people.
She's absolutely right, because if you look at what the allegations are and what the Texas Attorney General and now 17 other attorneys general are asking for, it's just, they do want to disenfranchise voters. They want to make it so these particular states don't count in the electoral college count. So their electoral college votes will not count toward the official total. It's just absolutely and utterly, it's terrible. I mean, this is the most undemocratic ask you can imagine. And so let me give you more details on what they're asking for and what they're alleging. So through this lawsuit, Paxton claims that the pandemic era changes to election procedures violated federal law. Why? How? I mean, some of these laws were actually challenged in courts, and judges clearly sided with the election laws and did not find them unconstitutional or illegal, federally speaking. Paxton, in a filing to the high court, Paxton claims the 4 battleground states broke the law by instituting pandemic-related changes to election policies, whether through executive fiat or friendly lawsuits, thereby weakening ballot integrity. Again, the courts didn't really see an issue with these election laws prior to the election taking place. In Pennsylvania specifically, which by the way isn't noted in the Texas lawsuit, there were Republican lawmakers in the state legislature who voted in favor of the election laws they implemented as a result of the pandemic. And then they turned around and tried to sue in one of these like phony election fraud cases. It's absolutely shameful. Paxton claimed that these changes allowed the voter fraud to occur. They have no examples of voter fraud. They have no evidence of voter fraud. A conclusion experts and election officials have rejected and said the court should push back a December 14th deadline by which states must appoint their presidential electors. So that deadline is quickly approaching, and it's just abundantly clear what they're trying to do. And to be clear, it is very unlikely, based on the fact that the Supreme Court rejected the Pennsylvania lawsuit, it's unlikely that the Supreme Court is going to go along with this nonsense. But you never know. You never know.
Unless they rejected the previous lawsuit to clear the path to this one, because that one was too narrow and it only had to do with one state. This has to do with all of them. So in one fell swoop, they could overturn the entire thing. And of course, there's very, 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 very little chance that they'll do that. But we have to pay attention to this because they could, in theory, they have a supermajority if they decided to. If a group small enough that they could fit around the table I'm sitting at decide that American democracy is done, they could overturn it. It seems impossible. That's why we're not freaking out more than we already are. But they could do it. The entire thing is, it's like the perfect example of American politics. It is stupid BS that we're forced to pay attention to that has nothing to do with people's lives or livelihood. But we have to pay attention to it because it could go through. It could overturn the election.
Exactly. No, this is the daily struggle with this story because I hate it. I hate I hate how stupid it is, how it just keeps going, it doesn't end. Like, please just let this end already so we can focus on other news. But this is the exact type of Republican behavior where if you're not paying attention and if you're not making it very clear that the media is on to you, I mean, they do all sorts of shady deals, shady policy negotiations, all sorts of things that violate our rights if they're able to do it without us noticing or paying attention, which is why we do need to pay attention. Two more things I need to just quickly mention. So when it comes to Ken Paxton and this Supreme Court lawsuit, or this lawsuit he's filing with the Supreme Court, there are certain members of his team that have decided to kind of, I guess, abandon this effort, not be part of it. As the Texas Tribune noted, conspicuously absent is the agency's top lawyer for appellate work, Solicitor General Kyle Hawkins, who typically argues the state's cases before the Supreme Court and did so as recently as last month. None of Hawkins' deputies is listed as contributing to the case, nor are any of the agency's hundreds of other attorneys. So, these people know that this is a nonsense lawsuit. Georgia's Deputy Secretary of State, by the way, Jordan Fuchs, is livid about what's going on. He says the allegations in the lawsuit are false and irresponsible. Texas alleges that there are 80,000 forged signatures on absentee ballots in Georgia, where, by the way, they did a hand count.
Twice, I think.
Twice, yeah, you're right. They did it twice, but they don't bring forward a single person who this happened to. That's because it didn't happen. There wasn't fraud. They're unable to prove it. And it's just really, it's dangerous what they're doing, not necessarily because I think that an actual successful political coup is taking place. I'm just worried about what this is doing to the already hostile climate in the country between Trump supporters and pretty much everyone else.
Yeah, and really fast, if they can do this, if other states can sue to overturn the results of elections in states that aren't a party to the lawsuit, with the idea being that at a federal level, the outcomes of individual states affects all states. So theoretically, they have standing or it affects them in some way. Okay, well, if you can do it, we can do it. When Georgia suppressed the vote in 2018 or whatever, or when Texas did. In previous elections, and that led to either Republican senators being elected or perhaps led to Trump winning in those states theoretically, then we can challenge those. We can do this all day long for the rest of time. And that is, at least in theory, what the Supreme Court would be opening us up to if they actually give this the time of day. But again, if they do give this the time of day, then those sorts of concerns are the least of our concern, because we are very much not living in the country we thought we were if they decide to take this up and overturn the results of those multiple states elections.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.